those who have been living under a rock, Chris McCarthy of Internal Bleeding. We're going to get into it long before all that, though, where we always go with the guests. You and I go back right off. You cut me with the BioLitch demo right off the top. We're going to get into that. But even before that, are you originally from Long Island? Are you from a musical family?
Yeah, grew up here, East Islip, born and raised. Honed my chops out in Selden, though. That's where shit really started making sense for me when I met those cats in my teenage years.
Selden.
Yeah, the dudes that were ended up being in the band Revenants, and it was connected to Suffocation and those guys and stuff. So that was like my jump to like the whole scene was connected to through Selden, thankfully. But yeah, only me and a couple other cats that were in that band without Remorse were the East Islip kids. Me, Andrew Parks, John Benessi, and Matt Martins were the only cats from my school that were into Morbid Angel and Hatebreed, and you know what I mean? Like, so we, but we had to branch out to find other cats like that. But yeah, grew up on Long Island my whole fucking life. Not really a musical family, always music being played, and parents passionate about music, but nobody knows how to play instruments and nothing. Not to say I do or anything, but
Did you have like an older cousin or just someone who was...
Yes. So I have... So music was always played in my house. Beatles, Sabbath, Springsteen, shit like that, And then I had an older cousin, this kid, Kevin Amato. He's actually a very famous streetwear and like hip-hop photographer out in L.A. right now. He's very popular. He's a super popular guy. He's got a cool book out. But yeah, he was like older kid that was into like Nine Inch Nails and, slightly different, unaccessible music when you're in the 6th grade than just Metallica. And, so I was like, oh, cool, show me this and show me that. And then I had another friend named Danny Centrella, his older brother Anthony, another kid that like you'd walk past his bedroom and he had every fucking poster from Napalm Death Scum to Depeche Mode to Merzbout. Like he had everything. And this kid was super ahead of the game. And this was like 95. So I had access to some weird shit super early. So like by the time I was in like 4th, 5th grade, I was already finding Frontline Assembly and early death metal bands, Morbid Angel and shit like that. So it's pretty cool. So shout out to Anthony Centrella and shout out my cousin Kevin for that.
Okay, and you said something important before. You talked about, first of all, Revenants.
Fuck yeah.
R.I.P. to that band. Very important band in the early 2000s Long Island death metal scene. I think they just left that demo. That's all they recorded, right?
They had a full length out called Omen of Tragedy.
Okay.
And then they had another EP. I don't know if it got pressed, but it was like a MySpace era EP that had really killer production. And then the band kind of dissolved and like everybody kind of went and did their own thing outside of music. Everybody was really kind of more interested in their own thing, and it was over after that when they kind of, went to go do their own thing. Seth went to go do MMA, and Joe was really into cars, and Colin was really into cars, and Mike moved to China to pursue teaching music over there, so it was just kind of like, just how it was.
Yeah, man.
I was thankfully enough to be in the band for like 6 months, and I was always like their 6th member. I was always with them on tour, and I was their merch guy and the whole thing. But I did get to be in the band for a while. It was pretty cool.
So, and you said Selden.
Yeah.
I'm getting flashbacks. If the listeners want to go back to what I'm talking about quickly, the very first time we had Chris Basile of Pyrexia on, he described going to high school in Middle Island, Long Island.
Similar-ish area.
Yeah, and being around Terrence Hobbs and Mike Smith and so on and so forth. And I just want to make the point that Selden, not so far away from the Middle Island area. And it's not necessarily... Respectfully, there's not a lot going on out there for a young guy getting into music. Like here in Huntington, you had like some concert halls and stuff, but like out there, it seems a little bit like harder.
Sure. As weird as this is, there was 2 of the most important record stores of all time actually out there. So okay, none of the above.
Got it.
I mean, that was really like everything. Once I found out that place existed, I'd beg my grandmother to bring me there on a Saturday morning, drive half hour from East Islip in her little, K car, her little Reliant K or whatever. And I'd flip through everything, buy fucking Skinny Puppy album. But then I'd also see death metal and grindcore that I was never, that I would have never known about otherwise super early. I remember seeing the Hatebreed and Neglect demo for like $5, the split, and being like, oh, whatever that is, this guy singing with a baseball cap. And not years later, not realizing it's this super important shit, but that store, super important. Yeah. And another place up on the North Shore in Port Jeff called Music Den. And they had a little bit more of like the industrial and like noise and experimental shit. That record label Ant Zen and some other crap that like you just would never find at FYE and stuff like that. That I was just like didn't end up loving the music, but I loved that it existed, and I thought it was cool because it was another level of weird underground extremity that I was just like digging and trying to find, you know. And I also got Blessed Are the Sick there for $2 used.
Wow!
So shout out Music Den.
I never got out to Music Den about that. I didn't know about that. I got to eat my words a little bit about None of the Above. Being right in the heart of that Selden Middle Island area. I think technically it's in Center Reach.
Center Reach,
right
it's the same thing. So Center Reach, Port Jeff Station, Middle. That's all like the area to me.
It's all wrapped up.
So all the Suffolk guys, most of them, if they didn't go to Newfield, they went to Newport. They went to Ward Melville. That's where Sean Bell is from. Sean Bell is my big bro. He's my OG. He put me onto the game when I got older. You know, he discovered my first stupid high school band and went, "This kid's got something. Let's keep it going." You know.
Who, for the listeners, and for Tom and I, who is Sean Bell to the Long Island underground music scene?
Sean Bell, a man of many backgrounds, and you know, has handled a lot of different things. But I mean, attached to the hardcore scene, attached to the metal scene, I could say
big name out
promoter at heart. But also, in his heyday, he was DJ. He was on Metropolis Records. He was DJ Destruct, so he was connected to the industrial scene, the goth scene. Promoter in a lot of different scenes. Respected in a lot of different scenes. So I ended up meeting him through, he sent my stupid high school band's website an email. So my stupid high school band, From the Ashes, sent us an email. We never got emails, you know. We never got anybody replied on the CJB page or the Hot Fire page or whatever it was. I don't remember. But I was like, wow, we got an email today. Wow, somebody wants to book us in Hop Hog. Let's play Saints and Sinners, you know. And we were like a crappy band. We were in like 11th grade, you know.
Yes, Saints
and we're like not good,
Sinners.
but we were legit one of the only extreme-ish bands because everyone was either a Korn band or a Nirvana band. This is in 2000, you know, 2001 tops, and you know, so everyone's like a Coal Chamber band kind of at the time or something, you know.
Right, so
and
right
we're like the only
before,
band that's like
that
pretending to be Deicide, and we're like 15. You know what I mean?
Right. There was like that
So he was like,
period in Long Island history where it was like you had this like Billboard influence, and it kind of the hardcore scene wasn't there yet.
Sure.
Like we talk a lot about like from you know, like when we were at shows and stuff, like it was hot. You know, things were going on, but there was dry times back then.
Sure. And we were like, so like I said, he sent us an email. He's like, wow, you guys are cool. You guys are young. I can't believe you guys are making death metal, you know, as long as you are. You guys want to play a show? And we did. He booked us at this place, and all the dudes from Suffocation were just chilling there. And they were like, wait, how old are you guys? You know? And they were like, cool. It's pretty cool. And I knew then that like that particular lineup and those particular songs weren't the greatest in the world. And as we got a little better, I was able to morph that band into the band that became Without Remorse. And that was like where we sharpened it up. And
was that From the Ashes?
Yeah, that band, the original band was From the Ashes.
That
yeah.
I think is when I met you. When From the Ashes played shows with BioLitch.
Yeah, man. So those were like the Dying Fetus shows that we ended up having to sell 50 tickets for or whatever.
Remorse. Probably
at
about
Remorse.
20 years ago.
Yeah, 2002.
Yeah,
maybe 2001 even.
Damn, man.
December 20th. I remember. I still have the sticky pass. Like it was on the back of like a door that ended up moving to like a mirror. I have the sticky pass forever. Like it was such an important. But yeah, but BioLitch, man, sicko fucking band.
Yeah,
and you guys were super ahead of the game. So like that being said, there weren't a lot of extreme bands,
right?
And we were like barely extreme. Like we were just kind of doing thrash death metal, you know, with some moshy kind of parts.
But
we were just doing what we could.
Teeth.
But like, it's definitely not. We definitely weren't a Nirvana band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we see this band BioLitch with inhuman fucking vocals, and like so back then not a lot of drummers were able to do killer double bass, and you guys had a sick ass drummer. Like nobody figured out the technique till maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years later, and double bass pedals were available. You guys had a dude that was able to do it super early, and like that was like gold back in the day. A dude that could play sick ass drums, you know.
He was something of a savant. He was something of a guy that could just study certain things to give you. And I like, having known him and been in the band with him, this is like to give you an idea of how his mind worked. He used to like buy, and this is the early 2000s when like, I don't know if eBay was around or whatever, but it wasn't as easy to do shit like this. He would buy like imported Japanese video games that were like super technical and hard, like puzzle games, and play those for his leisure. Like his mind worked in a weird way, man. And with drums and music, he used to write a lot of BioLitch stuff on drums first. He would record drums on a 4-track and then write guitar parts around what he just freestyled off of the drums.
Wow.
And he was on some weird shit, man. And I don't, substances, maybe not. I don't know, allegedly. But yeah, like,
I get it.
It was, Biolich was an interesting combination of people too, man. We all were we were all from completely different backgrounds and different worlds.
Yeah, I'm not sure
if
I remember the guitar player.
Andrew. He was a young guy. He was like he was like 13 or 14 when he first joined Biolich, and that Biolich was like playing live through most of his teens. He was 18 when the band broke up, and everyone kind of met in the middle on like brutal guttural death metal, but was coming from like a different type of like underground music in a way. And like Dan, the bass player, is in Miasmatic Necrosis.
Okay,
now,
cool, sick.
Who's doing a lot? They put out a record.
I see them on a lot of flyers.
Yeah, they're doing shit right now. But yeah, so it was, we were kind of, like, if you want to say ahead of our time, we were just we were ripping off bands that like wouldn't really we were ripping off Demolich a few years before other people, and other bands.
It was
like
a lot of years. It wasn't just a few years. It was super early that I was like, wow, this band is extreme, and wow. Then you guys were all cool as fuck too. But it was like such a different thing than all the bands that were playing. It was either like, people don't remember a time. People where nu metal was terrible. You know what I mean? Like, local nu metal bands were terrible. You know what I mean? Simply terrible.
Of
course.
course.
Yeah.
And that's all there were. Or you were like a garage rockish kind of like, like Nirvana. I don't know. I want to go out to, keep bringing them up, but like, that's like the style. Like the clean guitar garage band.
It is funny.
No metal influence.
That like nu metal, that idea behind nu metal, it's such like, that whole genre at the time it was big was such a production thing.
Sure.
People like would go and play in their garage, and it's like, of course it doesn't sound like Korn or Limp Bizkit. Like this is like they're behind these giant consoles and they're doing so many tricks, and it's cool, whatever. But you can't pull it off. It's like a producer's band first in my head.
So I was, like I said, I found extreme shit pretty early. So by the time like Korn and Linkin Park were big, I hated it. And like I liked the first Korn CD because I'm an old guy and it came out when I was in 5th grade, and you can't deny that. That's awesome. But like, it didn't stick with me when I, as everybody kept going that direction, I went and found, Morbid Angel and Skinny Puppy and these other bands that were just drawing me away from radio stuff.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah,
and then Dying Fetus, boom. Then that was it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, it's fun and it's hard as hell, and it made so much sense to me. And IB, of course, like. Driven to Conquer, it made so much sense. So like I found IB Driven to Conquer era, and I went backwards to the first 2 albums before that, and I love them all. Obviously, I love them all. Yeah. And but Driven made so much sense to me, especially in a time where a lot of death metal was sloppy. A lot of death metal had a lot of like unfollowable parts unless you were a musician already. And when you're 15,
it was before triggers were like worked out.
When you're 15, Cryptopsy sounds crazy to you in 2000.
Yeah.
Until I start realizing what they're doing, and I realize the magic behind it. Dying Fetus and IB just gave you the thing that I wanted. The heavy shit, the vocals, groovy parts, sicko drums, cool logos, sick merch.
They deliver on all that.
You know what I mean?
Check. Yeah.
Parts for me to fucking throw somebody through the merch table, you know what I mean? Like, but like, so that made a lot of sense to me. And then a lot of the hardcore stuff, the Hatebreeds of the world, the Sworn Enemies, the All Out Wars, Irate. And then I just wanted to like mush all that together, all my favorite parts of all that together,
When did you first get into guitar, though? Like your interest in heavy music is pretty easy to follow based on what you said. But where does the guitar come in?
I guess playing old Beatles videos and stuff when I was a kid, and old Springsteen stuff, and Led Zeppelin stuff. And my parents would play that, and I think my dad bought me a guitar maybe Christmas when I was like 10 years old.
Oh, okay.
It was like a Washburn, like a Strat by Washburn. It was actually a killer guitar. I don't know. I have no idea where it is right now, but it was actually a pretty nice guitar, and didn't really like pick up on it, and I didn't want to take lessons, and I just kind of like fucked around with it, and I didn't get serious maybe till I was like 14 or 15, and like Metallica was really like, taking over 13, 14 years old.
Sure,
and I'm I think I can do this. Let's do this. You figure out how to get the guitar tuned as best you could. Right. You sit there and you try to play along, or tablature was big back in the day too.
Yeah, that's true.
So obviously, Metallica was really the reason, I played guitar.
Were you a tablet user?
No, is that the automated thing that you were able to like?
Yeah, it was like a timeline. It was just all tab. It sounded like shit, but it was a really good tool.
Yeah, I would just sit on my screen and scroll. And I'd be like, all right, 2, 1, 3. I'd play Stab It True for like an hour and a half sitting in front of my computer. My dad would be like, all right, wrap it up. You know? No, I'm super supportive. Actually, I was just my pops was always super about it.
That's awesome, man. Well, you were talking about the hardcore stuff, trying to combine the hardcore and the death metal, because you've always kind of had like one foot in the hardcore scene and one foot in the death metal scene on Long Island here.
Sure. I love it all equal. It was all one thing to me.
Yeah.
Like underground music was all one thing to me. I realized that's not like that for everybody, but like it was to me. You know what I mean? Like,
well, especially in Suffolk, I feel like in Suffolk County, not to disclude Nassau, but like, or even greater, New York, but there's something out here, like, it's the home of internal bleeding. It's the home of pyrexia. It's the home of suffocation. Like, the death metal naturally was a little bit harder out here.
Sure.
Our backyard heroes influenced the world of harder, slammier death metal bands. So it's only right that our death metal and our hardcore would be peanut butter and jelly mixed together out here.
That's because, like, Hobbs and Chris Pravelis and Mike Smith, those dudes were into Agnostic Front and Crumbsuckers and Biohazard and, but they were also into Slayer and Morbid Angel, and they wanted to do all that shit at the same time, and the best parts of all that kind of stuff. And,
So, but right there, you mentioned Agnostic Front, Crumbsuckers. That's a different generation. You were in...
I'm in, like, the Hatebreed generation. I'm in the,
Well, fair enough, but I want to get into Without Remorse, because we talked about From the Ashes, evolving... Sure. You know where I'm going. I see. I see the look.
Hell yeah.
Because we talked about evolving into what you want Without Remorse to become. The guys in Suffocation are at Saints and Sinners, who are these young guys, that sort of thing. I think the band started 2004 or 5.
Without Remorse started 2004. Matt Martins is the only other member who's still in the band with me today. But again, like this was just he's not a metal guy, he's not a rock guy. He was a dude who listened to Mobb Deep, and I showed him Dying Fetus one day, and he was just able to do the vocals. And I was like, sick.
So
like,
Long
this is
Island.
sick as hell.
That is so long.
And he has passion for it now, and he was a Metallica guy, and he loves Pantera, and he loves Sepultura. But he's not like
I know.
he's not going to see Cavalera Brothers, or he's not actively seeking shit out. You know what I mean?
I get it.
He ended up loving a lot of the stuff down the line. Irate's his favorite band probably of all time. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But like all that stuff started making sense. So we found all the bands that were similar and adjacent to kind of what we were doing. Without Remorse, I just wanted to do. Literally before deathcore was deathcore, I wanted to do deathcore. I wanted to do hardcore structured songs, hardcore payoff parts with nasty, gross ass vocals, with triggered drums, with some sick trem parts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, with the extremity and intensity of death metal, but the structure and aesthetic and payoff of killer hardcore shit.
Exactly. And you mentioned Irate. There's bands out there that have kind of touched on the same type of thing. But it was before deathcore. It was before it was like its own genre.
It was like, before it became the thing that...
It was like a hybrid species back then. You know what I mean? And we're talking about the Long Island scene, talking about the early 2000s, Without Remorse. Yeah. Some of your shows got a little off the meat rack.
Man. And we loved it, man. We fucking loved it. We definitely encouraged it. It did get a little out of hand. It actually bit us in the ass. It helped it. It got us banned from a lot of clubs. It got us some dude from like Sony flew out to see us one time and is gonna sign us to like Sony something or other, offshoot. And he was like. He's like, that's not exactly the fan base we're aiming for. He's like, you guys are like, it's too much for us. We kind of wanted like a
Long Island crew.
Rock crowd. We wanted like He's like, no, this is too much. We didn't know you guys had like gang affiliation. I was like, Lord in heaven. You know what I mean? So it sort of worked against us. But the long run, I would never have traded it for another way. It's either fucking roll with us or get fucking rolled over. And that's how our friends felt. And if you challenged them, it probably ended up being bad. And the music fueled it, and the music made a lot of people fucking involuntarily do terrible shit. You know what I mean? Like, I hear Die Fetus, and I'm still like, I have to hit somebody with a chair. Like, someone has to be hit with this chair right now. Man. I don't know what to tell you. So I get it. But that's also what I was aiming for. At one point when I was like, oh, this is what we do, I was like, let's really fucking give them the goods. You know what I mean?
It's got to feel good when you see like people going that crazy.
It's the best feeling when somebody's viscerally reacting to something that you did. Especially my dumbass did. I sit on the corner of my bed in my underwear and write a dumbass riff, and then I see somebody going through the front window of a bar after that riff, live a couple weeks later. Like, holy crap! Great feeling. I don't love seeing fights. I don't love seeing people purposely fuck each other up. You know what I mean? I hate seeing girls get hit in the pit, of course. But like, if you're down there. it's fucking time. You know, it's time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's a construction zone.
real
man.
motherfuckers only. You know,
Put your hard hat on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I stay towards the back.
I've got
I'm
my
too
nose
old.
bashed in
I'm
sucking
too
ton
old,
of time.
man.
I think it was
Yeah.
during the Red Chord or Throwdown. It was that show. I think it was during the Red Chord at downtown. I have a fucking permanently concave nose from it, you know?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't trade that shit with the world. You love it. You're down there, you're in it, you love it.
It's definitely, and I feel like out here on Long Island, it was a big part of the culture through the 90s and the 2000s that like bleeds over into death metal. That's why we have, the kind of slam thing going on. So, and also at that point, Internal Bleeding themselves.
The Onward to
were-
Mecca era, yeah, they
Yeah,
were. I mean,
they were
the dudes in the
really
band
young.
were
Mhm,
were
mhm.
hardcore dudes for the most part, you know, and they, you know, the dudes in the band at the time were able to portray the band however the fuck they wanted at the time. And those were what they were, you know.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
they were Queens kids and they were Nassau County kids, and you know they were death metal, but they were Nassau dudes, you know.
It was
and
a
that's,
violent mentality.
you
for
know,
sure,
exactly.
man.
You know how it goes.
Yeah, no, it was real, man.
And the songs were sick as hell. Like if the songs weren't killer, you know, people would have been able to talk shit about it. People just still don't talk shit about the era, but like the album still holds up and it's sick, and the shows were nuts. And Billy's drumming might have been the best ever on that album, and like it was just such a great, you know. Bands are still trying to do that today. You know, that style, blending it together. That's perfect deathcore to me. That's death. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
you know, it was perfect. The hybrid of the two things that I love.
Onward to
Mecca nailed it. Fucking nailed
underrated
it.
album, man. Definitely, man. And so also,
And then I ended up being in Punch Your Face with 3 of the 5 members of that lineup. You know, so
there you go. Well, that's another band when we talk about. I mean, can we? I don't want to name the squad. I don't want to name anybody. You know,
no,
unless,
sure.
unless we
And I'm
can.
not in the band, and the band's still doing their thing, and
I don't
their next album's probably gonna be sick and
I
shit.
don't want to get anyone in trouble. You know, we could, whatever.
No, but
say
yeah, their
whatever.
friends were all troublemakers, and I
Yeah.
was part of the troublemakers, and
There
we
was a
encouraged
lot
the
of-
troublemakers, and
Some of the most wild shit I seen at shows back in that era. Saints and Sinners, I definitely saw like a few chairs get thrown.
oh
and
fuck
shit
yeah,
like
man,
that.
I remember it well.
Yeah,
but the
man.
songs were sick, you know. So that's Frankie Mitz on guitar, who was a
Yeah.
big influence on the style that I ended up honing and making the thing that is my thing that I love right now. Frankie Mitz probably top 3 big reasons that I do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he showed me a lot of stuff. So Frankie was in Punch Your Face, and he played guitar on Onward to Mecca. And his style, his influence just really was fucking huge for me. And it still is. The way he structured songs, the way he fucking takes a riff and does it 3 or 4 different ways. It's the fucking guy. That's my guy.
This is important too for listeners. Our Patreon listeners, I did a whole episode on kind of like the that era and back of Internal Bleeding with some of like the like I talked about Matt Ferrara being on that.
Shout out Matty, man. I love that kid, man. Rest in peace.
This is like a build on to that. Yeah, rest in peace to Matt. And Reputation kind of
Sick fucking band, man.
getting some shine nowadays. I see
Yeah,
people bring
they
the
should
name
have,
up,
man.
You know,
Like a lot of these death metal bands, even IB right now, like we're weirdly bigger than we've ever been, or the band has ever been. You know, it's weird for me to say we. I've been in the band for 10 years. I still sometimes I forget that I'm in the band. We're definitely more relevant than we've ever been. We've got more of a reach than we've ever done. We're playing bigger shows than we've ever played. But it's only because back in the day, it was the big bands. The Cannibals got big. The Obituaries got big. And then everybody else was like, no, these bands are cool. And it takes 20-something fucking years for people to go, oh, shit, I skipped this. I skipped that. Dehumanized. I skipped fucking, you know what I mean? These bands that are just fucking sick, that should be bigger, way bigger. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and well, death metal as a whole is huge right now, and I think it's in a way where people are doing their homework and showing some respect for the bands from back, like you say, from back in the day that didn't get the respect due when they were around, you know, in their earlier era, things like that. You know, you've seen a lot of these bands come back and they're playing bigger spots on festivals and stuff. You know, case in point with you guys. So you mentioned it, 2013, 14, you joined Internal Bleeding?
Yeah, so the band itself had like a 5 or 6 year hiatus after the Onward to Mecca lineup dissipated. And then original dudes, or at least Prevelis and Billy and some other cats, and Brian Hobby. But for some reason, Brian Hobby decided not to play his original instrument, which is in turn why I think I'm in the band right now. So we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So they came back in 2011. Keith DeVito from Pyrexia on vocals.
Imperium.
And this dude, Jay from Queens, he was just like an old friend of the band.
Jay Liff.
Yes,
yeah.
Old friend of the band who just
yeah.
knew he knows every fucking
Yeah.
song on bass. So they were like, all right, cool, you're in the band, you know. And he's killer. He played great. He was great behind the scenes, great to tour with.
They did some good shows around that era, and I do enjoy Imperium as an album.
It's definitely. I listen back to it. There's parts that I fucking love. There's parts that I change. There's some things that I do, but it is sick. And like I said, Billy's drumming is sick as fuck on it.
It is.
I played a couple of riffs on that album behind the scenes. I'm not in the picture. I'm not on the lineup, but I did track a couple of guitars in the studio. Yeah.
Okay, so you weren't like really officially in the band. Was that kind of like your segue?
So that was actually after the. So that was okay. So. Okay, so January 2013, I'm sitting at work. We should go back to Sean Bell. He's IB's original merch guy during their heyday, during their big touring era, 96, 97, 98 touring era. And he's my current boss. He's my best friend. He's my mentor. He looks over at me. He goes, "Hey, man, Chris Pravelis just texted me. He said, ask Chris McCarthy if he wants to play for IB in Canada in a few months. Brian can't get over the border or whatever it is, or he can't take off from work or whatever." I was like, "Oh, sick!" You know what I mean?
Hell yeah!
I was like, "That's sick as fuck, man." Yeah, tell him I'll say what's up, or tell him I'll text him, tomorrow. We'll figure it out. I was like, "Cool." So boom, I start talking to Pravelis again. We're friendly. We've always been friendly going to shows, and I've always looked up to him as like a dude that I love his fucking music, but we're not like bros yet, but we're friendly. We've always been friendly. And he's like, "Oh, hey man, what's going on, dude?" But he's like, Guy Marché. I mentioned to Guy Marché that I needed a guitar player fill in. He said, "How about McCarthy? I just saw Without Remorse the other night, and they were fucking sick." So shout out Guy Marché, Suffo IB, Pyrexia.
Hell yeah!
So he gave me the in, and he was like, "Yo, I just saw McCarthy play guitar the other night. He got mad good. You should ask him." I was like, "Oh, cool." He's like, so then I followed up with Sean Bell to see if you're a reliable dude. And he said, yes. He's like, "Do you want to come and learn a bunch of songs?" He's like, "We got a show in not Toronto. What's the other? Montreal in March or whatever it is." And this is like January. He's like, "Can you learn 8-10 songs or whatever?" I was like, "Oh, fuck yeah, dude. Passport's all good, no problem." So I start learning the songs, and like a week later, I get arrested smoking weed in New Jersey.
Oh,
yeah, and I had a big ass bag of weed in my fucking backpack too.
No.
Yeah. So boom, done. Toast. Probation for like 6 months. No traveling. No getting over the border or whatever. Thankfully, I only got 6 months probation. Already, I fucking worked it out. But ton of money down the drain.
I'm sorry. Quick question, because I over 10 years ago, I did have a DUI at one point. I've been through that process.
Sure.
When you get busted in Jersey and you got to be on probation, what do they like, transfer it to Suffolk County or?
They made it so difficult that I really only had to like pee once at a Quest Lab or whatever out here, and they sent the results, and thankfully I knew somebody at the Quest Lab, so my friend Josh was able to urinate for me a few times, which was really neat. So I tried to stop and smoke weed for I think 68 days, and I was still pissing dirty. That's how much weed I've smoked in my life. That I like.
Damn, dude.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I have weed. I am weed. You know what I mean? Like,
it's typically what, like 4 weeks?
I mean,
tops?
it was just still.
Dog. All right.
I am weed. So I was like, somebody's got to piss for me, dog.
I got a story.
I'm never going to be able to play another show in my life.
No fucking way, dude.
Not to cut you up. Yeah. When I had to go on probation, this is many years ago. I quit smoking weed so I could pee clean, and so I wouldn't have to get fuck up my probation. I was pissing dirty 3 months.
3 months, dude. That's 90-something days. Yeah.
But you know what it is? I think when you're a big dude, you retain that shit in your system.
It's part of me.
And I had to lie. This lady, she was a real nasty lady, this probation lady. And she would not believe. I said, "Miss, officer, it's been 3 months. I've not." She said, "There's no way. It's this is out of your system in 30 days. It's been 3 months." And she said, "Tell me what happened now, or I'm going to violate you right now." And like she was threatening to like put me in cuffs right there. I had to make up a story of like hitting a joint on a camping trip or something with my girlfriend and like apologize for it to like psychologically go home that day. And she ended up like buying that and feeling like she had power over. It was such a fucked up trip because in reality I did quit smoking weed.
No,
all right, I'm sorry.
No, it's real, dude. So I was like, oh, this sucks. So I think my friend to piss for me. That worked out good, but I still wasn't able to go over the border in time. So I couldn't go to that fucking show, and Pravelis was pissed. He wasn't like pissed, but he was like, "Dude, He's like, man, I thought you were a fucking reliable dude, man. What the fuck? All right, whatever. We're gonna play as a 4-piece, I guess. Sucks. See you around." I was like, oh no, you know what I mean? Like, I love IB. They're pissed at me now. That sucks.
That burns, man.
May comes around. He goes, "Yo, man," he's like, "Brian can't play this weekend of shows. You want to play fucking 4 shows this weekend?" I was like, hell yeah, fuck yeah. So it was like, Jersey, Boston, Connecticut, some shit like that. And the shows went great. We had a blast. Had a fucking blast playing with Billy. It was like fucking awesome, dude.
Hell yeah.
And that was that. And then there was a few more over the course of the next few months that Brian couldn't do. Brian had like electrical union gig or some shit. And he like just can't really get away for more than a day at a time, you know. And they're starting to get mad offers, you know, and they want to do these big tours or whatever, or, you know, 2-3 weeks at a clip, and Brian can't do them. So now they're coming up like, boom, I got an offer to go. So I went to Europe with them at the end of the year. We went to fucking South America. It was fucking awesome, you know, like all this cool shit. And then I hope I'm not rambling. This is good.
You're supposed to ramble.
Good. All right, cool.
Yeah. This is your job right now.
All right. I didn't know if I was losing you guys.
Yeah.
No.
Fucking. So yeah, so I went to South America and shit, and I'm playing a lot of shows, and it's fun as fuck, and it's like finally like the thing I want to do, because Without Remorse didn't let me do it. I mean, not that it didn't let me, it's just I didn't have the opportunities like I have with IB right now. So I'm loving it, and MDF is coming up. And Knotfest, the actual Knotfest with Slipknot is coming up with, you know, and Brian's like, I'm going to play those. And I'm like, dude, I just played like 60 shows last year for you guys. You know what I mean? Like you're going to play the 2 sickest ones. I was like, so I kind of like, I'm not a strong arm guy. I'm not an ultimatums guy, you know, but like, I also like, this is probably my only chance to like, maybe get to the next level and see this shit. I was like, so I told the guys, I was like, IB, I was like, this is what's up, man. I was like, you guys know how sick we are when I'm in the band. You guys know how tight I play. You guys know what kind of reach I have because of, you know, the connections I already have and shit. You know, I'm a fucking road dog. I figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, I want to play these shows or else I can't help you guys anymore. You know? Like, that's just kind of how it is. And they're like, oh. Well, they kind of had to talk with Brian, and he was just like, yeah, I get it. I guess I get it. You know, I'm not trying to hold you guys back. I'm glad that you guys are back.
The logistics.
You know?
Yeah.
The logistics of everyone trying to do it, man. Dude, this is important.
So it's tough because Brian was an OG in the band, but like,
great guy.
He also decided to come back bass player for 20 years of the band.
Yeah,
He came back as the guitar player for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Not sure why. I actually don't know why. I don't know why. Fine bass player. Should have just been the bass player. Probably would have still been the bass player. Don't understand why he chose guitar. But this, I kind of had to give him the ultimatum. I was like, that's that. And they kind of like, you know, texted me a week later and they're like, yeah, you got 4 out of 5 votes here in the band. You know, it's like, I wonder who it was. It was Keith. I think it was Keith that didn't want me in the band. That's fine. But yeah, they were like, yeah, majority rules. You're in the fucking band, you know. And I was like, holy shit, you know. And even Brian understood, and he's been super supportive ever since. He loves what we do. He sees us live. He comes out, and
I saw him.
You know, he loves it. He's fucking pumped that we're still sick and doing our thing.
When Exsanguinated opened for you guys in Brooklyn, I saw Brian around over there, man. Yeah, he's a good guy, dude. I love Brian. The reason I say this is important. Any listeners we have that have a band themselves, trying to figure out where they stand with this sort of thing, I say it all the time. Have those discussions. Think about it yourself. Do you want to go on the road? Do you want to like base your job, your day job around going all the way on tour or not? And like there's different paths to go. They're all respectable. But when you start getting involved with these session musicians and having a guy fill in all the time, sometimes you get to a point where you have the quote unquote real member, the guy who plays on the album or whatever, is not even playing any of the shows. You have this fill-in guy, and it's just a funny position. Do you pay this guy for every single show he's playing because he's the quote unquote session guy, or do you like what do you do with that? You know what I mean? And in your situation,
I mean, as far as finance, they always treated me like a full member before I was a full member, but like you know,
well, no, I'm not trying to get in your pockets. I'm just saying I'm explaining situations I've been in with bands I've been in, like this getting people to fill in, which is extremely common and kind of what you have to do nowadays. But sometimes it can be murky water to navigate. When you're having people in and out of your band and the quote-unquote real guy or the official member isn't playing any of the shows and things like that, it can be like political almost, you know?
Well, you know, I saw just how it had to go down, and I was like, when the fuck am I going to play with Slipknot again? When the fuck am I going to, you know what I mean? Like, they could have said no, they could have said fuck off, this is how it's going to be, you know? Like, I would have been fine with that too, I guess, you know?
I mean, even if it went the other way for some bizarre reason, it's like, you stood up for yourself, and it's not that no one was doing you dirty, it's just...
No, and I have such a good time with those guys, and they knew that we all click and we all have a fucking blast, and Provelis knows what I bring to the table, and they all did at the time.
Yeah. So before we get too far ahead, you mentioned something before I wanted to get to. John Gallagher, Dying Fetus. You talked before about helping the guy load in stuff, getting to know him, and him actually giving you some pointers.
Yeah, this is pre-roll for the listeners.
Yeah, so let's get into that, man.
Johnny G, man, the GOAT, man. Yeah. Besides like Provelis and Hetfield and... You know, like, definitely my biggest influence as far as the riff, you know what I mean? The big riff, you know what I mean? I'm not a doodly guy. I never figured it out. My fingers don't do the thing, you know? But the other part, man, I got good at that. But it's because of John Gallagher and Provelis, of course. But as far as singing and playing, which is something I love, and some people have complimented me over the years on, I guess, my capabilities in that. I don't think I'm great at it, but I was like, so when I was a kid, I was like, man, John, how do you sing and play so sick? Like, especially that kind of shit, you know what I mean? He was like, really, my right hand and my vocals are almost always doing the same thing. He's like, my left hand can do whatever the fuck it wants. But as long as my right hand is going, he's like, that's kind of like...
Something just clicked when you said that. I'm like playing back Dying Fetus riffs in my head, and I'm like...
He's like, left hand can do whatever the hell it wants. The craziest crap in the world. He's like, but as long as my right hand is kind of doing the thing that I can like...
Yeah.
You know, do the thing. He's like, that's how my vocals are based around the right hand thing.
That makes so much
sense. I was like, oh, shit, that makes a lot of sense. And then I thought about backwards, like, that's probably like that for Metallica and stuff, too. I was like, boom, man, it is. Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Tricks of the trade, man. Now everybody's going to go home and write the sickest riff. And do the sickest vocals over them.
Yeah, dude.
I'm going to try it as soon as you guys leave, man.
Wow. All right, so now you're officially... let's talk about those fests, Not Fest and Maryland Death Fest.
Yeah, okay, so MDF 2015, I'd already been playing live with the band for 2 years at this point, and like doing fill-in stuff, and it's been fun, but like that was the first big one that I was like, dude, I want to fucking play that, you know what I mean? And boom, on stage... Keith goes, yo, our new official motherfucking guitar player, Chris McCarthy. He got a big ass fucking pop in the room at Soundstage. And I was like, fuck yeah, cool moment. Felt good, you know?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It was nice to fucking have it and not acknowledge, not just some fucking stupid Facebook post that got like 7 likes, you know what I mean? So it was cool to have somebody do it, and like now I can go back and even watch it on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, you know? I knew it was coming, but it was nice to hear it, you know?
Clip it and put it on your LinkedIn.
And then, a couple months down the road, we did Not Fest. And I got to be honest, I mean, experience-wise, treatment-wise, like... unbelievable, like, you know, satisfaction wise, you know, we're like, all the shit I did when I was a kid, all the shit, every fucking line I stood, I did it. I fucking got to, I'm part of it a little bit, you know what I mean? A little fucking bit. I'm doing it today. I'm part of it. We didn't play great. We didn't fucking play great. Provelis didn't play great. His gear is always doing something insane. One of his 7,000 pedals. My hand locked up. I was drinking and I was high and I wasn't fucking properly hydrated. Keith, just not great at that point in his career. And like Billy and Jay played fine. They played great. But like, you know, not the greatest show we ever played, especially when it should have probably been the greatest show we ever played. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was fine. Good reaction and stuff. Nobody was like, well, that band sucked. But I was like, that could have been way sicker. Well, you know what I mean?
Truthfully, it's if Billy's on, then everyone's on.
He was killing it. You know what I mean?
Drummers are, that's what the people are really hearing the most. So.
Sure.
Yeah,
but I knew like we could have been way sicker and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and you know, in turn, you know, Keith kind of started stopping showing up to practice shortly after that, and that became a thing with him and Chris, and that's kind of why he got replaced. And then Joe Marchese joined the band for a few years. Joe sang for Revenants and Mother Brain.
Yes.
And that was a great era. He was one of my best friends, one of my best collaborators.
Yeah, I really enjoyed seeing Joe front Internal Bleeding.
It was a fucking really fun time for me, man. You know, he had family stuff that had to come up first, and he couldn't fucking tour more than a day at a time, you know.
Yeah,
and he didn't realize it till he committed to the band, you know. And again, like, fuck, I can't do it. You know?
I respect the family guys. I respect the career guys. All that sort of thing. Like I'm just, don't get it wrong.
No, I get it.
All I'm saying is that, you know, people... It can save a friendship in some cases if you talk to your bandmates and say who wants to go on tour for 2 weeks every once in a while and who can't do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it was kind of like, you know, we were going to Japan coming up soon, and he was just like, I just can't fucking do it. These tickets are how much before you put my fucking name on it? You know what I mean? Like, I can't fucking go. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So we kind of knew it was going. We kind of had an idea in our heads. We kind of had brought it up to our fill-in wise to our buddy Steve from Sacrificial Slaughter. They're like a thrash death band from Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And he's a tough guy, sick vocals, road dog, fucking knows what he's doing behind the scenes, promoter. And like, always thought his, you know, I always thought his vocals were sick as fuck, you know, and he looks cool and he looks tough on stage. So I was like, all right, Joe can't play this show. Let's get Steve to fucking fill in, go to Japan or whatever. Ended up working out, you know, and Steve ended up being cool as fuck and his vocals are sick and Joe just couldn't do it at all. So it was like, you know, do you want to fucking do this, man? Steve was like, fuck yeah, dude. Got the logo tattooed on the side of his fucking head.
That's commitment, man.
We fucking went after it. And the new shit's going to be sick, dude. And he really fucking grew into his own the last few years. He's a sick fucking front man and really fucking got the fucking IB confidence the last few fucking tours. And the next album's gonna be fucking nasty, dude. And it's good because he can beat a lot of people up too. Like, we don't want any pussies fucking front. Not that Joe could fucking fight too, but like, you know, like part of the requirement of being an IB is you got to be able to fight. So.
Yeah. There's a tough guy thing going on in IB. It's undeniable.
It's not on purpose, but like, you know, it's part of the requirement.
Yeah, it's the Long Island.
Yeah, and Steve, thing, he doesn't like admitting that he's from LA. So
well, it's all right. I mean, you guys play Brooklyn, and you know, a bunch of worms are standing there going,
"Yep,
that's not technical enough."
Right, exactly.
Allegedly.
Yeah. So we've heard.
I'm already getting over my trouble with Brooklyn that I had last episode. Tom, let's chill. We got to think about young Ian out there on the street, man. Going when he goes to shows alone. So okay, man. So now you talked a little bit. You talked about the Joe era. You guys, of course, in 2017, you guys recorded the Final Justice single, which, you know, sadly, as we all know, that was right around the time that Bill Tolley unexpectedly passed away.
Crazy, right? So we were supposed to put that song out the day after he died. And so we were like, fuck it, do we still do it? So like that night, we're sitting there, we edited it to have a fucking memorial thing at the beginning of the video. We're like, of course we're putting it the fuck out, you know what I mean? Yeah. Crazy timing, terrible timing. Still surreal to think that the whole thing happened.
Yeah.
Pretty brutal. Probably the worst and weirdest shit that I've ever experienced. Feeling wise, you know, just out of nowhere, just like it didn't seem real. None of it seemed fucking real. Sad for us, of course. Sad for Provelis because that's his best friend for a million years and best collaborator. Obviously, terrible for his fucking family. I hate it. I hate thinking about it, of course. But yeah, so that's weird. So the single and that video came out a day later, a day after he died. We put it out, and song was sick as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
And then we ended up making it on the album version with Kyle on drums a couple of years later and shit. Yeah, it was a fucking weird time, man. Definitely strange time, and I know you guys were all very fucking supportive, and everybody on Long Island was great to us. You know, it was fucking weird. It was sad, but it was weird.
Yeah.
It was this. It was like this Venn diagram, this crossover of the, we'll say the first responder culture, which is very strong here on Long Island.
Sure.
The firefighters, the police, all that sort of thing, the EMTs, and the underground metal community, which is, of course, very strong in Long Island, in New York City. I mean, it was very wide felt, man. Of course, and in tribute to the spirit, you guys, of course, kept trucking on. Now, do you want to talk a little bit and maybe catch some of the listeners who don't know up to speed about Kyle's pedigree with internal bleeding, which doesn't just start after you guys decide to push on after that?
Right, so Kyle, he was in the band Mucopus with Jason Kaiser, who was in Skinless, and he's currently the singer in Origin. Yeah, sick-ass drummer. Without Remorse and Mucopus used to play upstate together, so I've always been friendly with him. Then in 2005, on one of the legs of the Onward to Mecca U.S. tour, there were two big tours in the U.S., the second tour, Billy couldn't do for work reasons. You know, you had the big FDNY gig, and he couldn't take this. It was a 5-week tour. And the album was still doing pretty hot, so he just had to tap somebody that kind of did it. So he put it out there on MySpace, and Kyle, for however reason, got in touch. Or maybe I think George from Dehumanized, went, "Yo, Kyle Eddie can do it," you know? And yeah, so Kyle was in Internal Bleeding in 2005 for about 5 weeks, played, you know, however many shows that is, 50 shows with IB during the Onward to Mecca era.
Interesting.
And, you know, I always knew him back then, and we were always friendly with our two bands and stuff, and always been a cool kid. And we had a tour in 2017, in May of that year, with the band Vader. And before Billy passed away, he already knew he couldn't do it. He could do the Long Island show and maybe the Connecticut show, and then we had another 4 weeks out on the road that we said yes to, that he just couldn't do. So he was like, "Yeah, what about Kyle?" So we were like, does Kyle still know 10 IB songs? Let's fucking get him down here, you know?
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah, fuck it, dude." He's like, "Oh, it's awesome. I haven't been on the fucking road in a while. I would love to do that, you know?" And then Billy passes away, and then, you know, we're at the funeral, and Kyle comes all the way down from upstate just to be there with us and shit, and we didn't really make any decisions. We were on the road and shit, and we still had the tour. And he knew, he was like, all right, are we still doing this? He's like, if we're not doing the tour, I understand. He's like, fuck it. We were like, fuck it. Pavel's like, we're doing the fucking tour. He's like, I can't sit home. He's like, I got to do the fucking tour. You know what I mean? Like, we're going out there, we're going to play these fucking songs. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. All right, we have to do that. And I remember we were at the Rainbow in L.A., sitting around with Kyle. We had already probably 2.5 weeks under our belt, and the shows were great, and he's great, and he's playing sick as fuck, and he's great. Like, he's like the best human. He's like he's become one of my best fucking friends. I love him, and we were having such a good time with him, and he was alleviating so much of our shit that was happening. We had like that thing in the back of our head that we were trying not to. And I'm looking at this fucking kid. I'm looking for Pavel. I'm like, this kid's got to be in the fucking band, dude. He's like, he's in the fucking band. Pavel's like, he's in the fucking band. So we made a decision there in L.A. at the Rainbow, eating pizza. And then we talked about it after the fact, but we knew like 2 weeks into it, I was like, this kid's in the fucking band if he wants at the gig, of course, Yeah. And he ended up being great. He fucking stepped up, and the Corrupting Influence album is fucking insane. He played sick as fuck on it. Mm-hmm. Again, he's a road dog. He's in it. He's my co-pilot. He's up with me every fucking night while I'm driving, bullshitting, laughing with me. He's my fucking weed partner. He's my havoc partner on the road. You know what I mean? He's the GOAT. I love him. He saved IB. He saved IB. And if we didn't have such a sick drummer, we wouldn't be a sick band. And he makes us sick.
He's a great guy too, man. I enjoy catching up with him whenever I see him, man. He's a nice guy. And we did. I met him in 2018 when I filled in for Pyrexia on vocals for a few shows on tour.
I remember that tour.
With you guys. Yeah, great experience hanging out with all you guys. That was also the first time I met Ryan Giordano, who's your current bass player, latest bass player this era of Internal Bleeding. You want to just talk a little bit about him?
Yeah.
And just because, introduce him to the lineup too?
So Ryan, again, that tour that you were on, Ryan filled in for Sean Kennedy, who was on the Corrupting Influence album, who's also in Pyrexia.
And yeah, Sean Kennedy is currently in Pyrexia.
Right.
Yeah, we should say. Okay.
Sean wasn't able to do that tour. Yeah. I think he was going something with his dad's plumbing company, and he had to be home for that X amount of weeks, and that's fine. But it was the album release tour, and we couldn't not do it because we kind of needed to be on the road pumping this record. And I put it out there I asked Nick from the band Merciless Concept, because I know he's sick.
Nick Santana?
Yeah, Nick. Yeah, yes. Santana, exactly. And I was like, hey, man, you want to play an IB for a couple weeks? He's like, dude, I just got a new job. I can't fucking go anywhere. He's like, what about... I love
that kid, man. He's funny, man.
Yeah, he's like, what about John Mackey from Vatican? He's like, what about Ryan from Mercy Blow? And then... I'm trying to think. He maybe said somebody else. It'll come to me. But I was like, all right. I was like, we sent an email to everybody, or we molded about ourselves. And I was like, ask that kid Ryan, man. See if he can play the bass, So we sent him a video. He sent back a fucking video of him playing like a human suffering perfect, And I was like, fuck it. All right. Get him in the van. Played the shows. Played the whole tour. He was great. John Pence from the band Prison was the other bass player. Mm-hmm. They're like a deathcore band, but he's a really sick bass player. So Ryan was great on the road for that fucking tour that we were on. No problems. Played good every night. Did his own thing. He dresses how the fuck he wants. He's a madman. He's got fucking million girlfriends. He's fucking, his whole thing. But he adds a bit of like that rock star shit to the band. You know what I mean? That like, which kind of works, and he's used it to his favor, and he's great, and he delivers behind the scenes as goofy as he wants to dress or ever, whatever. I don't give a fuck. He plays hard as fuck. He played hard in the studio. He's got cool ideas. He's great in the van. He's great on the road. He's as responsible as he's great. He's a great fucking kid, and became one of my best friends. So
different generation, man.
Yeah, man, definitely. It's definitely, you can definitely tell he's 10 years younger than me or whatever. But if I was, tall, handsome, skinny kid, I'd be doing all that same shit too,
Fair enough, man. Yeah, I just want to, kind of update the line. You started talking about Steve Worley.
Steve Worley, yeah.
Steve Worley, who's the current vocalist of Internal Bleeding. I just figured we'd update the lineup a little bit, catch people up to speed. And if they're not completely up to speed, it's almost been like 2 years since you guys put out the Overthrow Creation single.
Yeah, that was 2 summers ago, right before the Deicide tour. Which was great. That was like the biggest tour IB ever went on. It was successful. It was the most money I ever came home with. I was like, death metal did this? I was like, holy shit. It was like the best. It was like the best time. It was like one of those things that I was finally like, all right.
How long was that run?
Little fucking respect. It was like 4 weeks on the dot.
Okay, that's...
Like the first to the first of
that's
whatever.
A run,
August,
man. That's,
September, whatever it was.
That's not small beans right
No,
there.
and like all the shows were sold out. Like every show was 800 people, 1,000 people. It was fucking awesome.
What was it touring, like the situation you guys touring with Deicide? Everyone cool there? I mean, I'm like not
so
asking
definitely
for gossip,
cool.
just
Definitely
flow,
fucking cool. The entire band was cool. We had a few moments with Glenn that were a little funny, where he got a little annoyed at us about some behind the scenes shit. But all in all, he was always cool to us.
I heard the story. I'm not gonna blow up the spot.
Ryan can tell the story one day if he wants.
Yeah.
We got a little angry at Ryan one day, but we smoothed it out the next day, and he kind of just laughed about it. But yeah, Glenn's cool as fuck, and he's actually probably cooler than people realize. Yeah, it was cool as fuck, man. We had a blast with them.
Awesome.
And they were sick every night, too.
Yeah, I love
Deicide,
man.
Deicide, another band kind of getting, not that they weren't huge in the 90s, but I kind of see a little bit more of a resurgence of respect for them the last
They
few
were my
years.
favorite, man. Of all the Florida bands, they were number one for me, man.
Yeah, Deicide
They
was
delivered
great,
the
man.
most payoff shit for me, you know? At least I had to think about, you know, most just like, give me the shit, you know?
Serpents of the Light was a great album.
Love it.
That was more
Got
my
that None of
generation.
the Above.
Yeah, None of the Above.
Shout out
man.
to the above.
I drive past there constantly because I work right out there, man. It's
a nail salon.
Nail salon, and there's like a tattoo parlor there.
Yeah.
You know. But and anyway, so Overthrow Creation comes out. Are there? And is there anything you can talk about? New album plans?
Oh, yeah, for
recordings. You know, you want to talk about something like
It's
that?
just about done writing wise. Going to go back. I have like 8 of 9 songs done, I think.
Okay.
And I'm going to go back and fix little things, add little tricks and trinkets and make things cooler, you know, cooler transitions, you know, try and fix a few things that I want to go back and do before we really commit. And then we're going to track it, and it's supposed to come out. The album's going to be called Settle All Scores. I put it out there online a few times, so it's not new news.
Okay.
Yeah, the album's called Settle All Scores. It's going to come out on Unique Leader, I think, unless somebody else does it and swoops in the last minute, but I think it's a Unique Leader venture.
Okay.
Gonna have some cool guest vocals on it. Gonna have some fucking really classic fucking IB shit on it. Gonna have some McCarthy era IB shit on it. You know what I mean? It's cool. It's fucking sick. I had some really, really bad writer's block the last few years. I don't know if it was the COVID thing or just being, you know, I just like I could. So Corrupting Influence is like 80% my stuff. And Provelis approved a lot of it, you know. This album is like 80% Provelis, and I kind of just helped this time, you know. And it's sick as fuck, you know. It definitely probably might be more IB than the last album, you know, because a little more Provelis influence on it. I just like he just flows sometimes. He'll wake up with 7 straight minutes of music, and I'll be like, all right, do that twice, get rid of that part, trem pick that, do the octave note there, do a choke that, you know what I mean? Like, and that's how I work with him, you know, backwards, you know.
Wow.
And he writes a lot of sick shit. It's like usually pretty sick and competitive, and it's not old guy music, and it's not fucking boring ass fucking. It's actually sick. Like he writes a lot of sick shit that I go, oh shit.
No, you guys definitely have that like pushing what you could do with a power chord,
sure.
like shifting around a neck a certain way, which is like if you don't play guitar, it looks easy. It's not easy. Like that shit is fucking hard.
Yeah, that's like the Provelis, Gallagher.
Yeah,
you know that fucking Yes, I know
that's
exactly
like
the thing you're
that's
talking
kind
about.
of like the double kick world, you know. You can hear double kick and go, how's he doing with his feet? That's the equivalent, where you can like slide up and down a neck like that and make a riff happen. It's tight.
Yeah,
dude.
that's the Provelis shit, man. And yeah, he wrote a lot of sick shit on this album, and I kind of just let him do his thing and didn't really question it, you know.
I like things like that as a listener when you can listen to an album and kind of like compare and contrast writing styles and, you know, just kind of like, you know, like as a kind of like an archivist or something of death metal, you know what I mean? You know different things that went on with the album.
Yeah.
And so all right, so that's not recorded yet though. You guys are still
we got the
polishing it up.
pre-production stuff. So then we're gonna do the drums and the vocals at Full Force here on Long Island with Joe Sincata.
Okay,
as we do,
of course.
And we're actually try something different. We're gonna do we're gonna track the guitars at home, and Taylor Young from The Pit is gonna reamp them or whatever the hell that means, and then mix the album and the whole thing.
Okay.
He's in the band God's Hate. He's in Nails. Some of those other bands. So like, I've always loved how the guitars on a lot of his records sound, and I always loved how the guitars and the drums on Cincata's shit sound. So I was like, I want to do them both.
Yeah.
This is maybe the last time IB ever makes an album. Chris is not a young man. You know what I mean? Not to say this is the last one, but who the fuck knows? I want to do some shit that we don't normally do. I want to try something different. Not that I don't love the last album. Love it. Love it. Fucking love it. Just want to try something different.
Always want to go in a different place.
Want to try something different.
Also, the advantage of recording guitars at home and doing the DI
Go at my own
thing,
fucking pace.
yeah,
save a ton of
exactly.
money.
Like you don't have to be performing for a studio or a clock.
Correct.
Like you just get it done.
That's it. We're gonna fucking do our thing. We're gonna fucking track when we feel like tracking. When my finger starts to hurt, we're not gonna fucking do it no more. I'll pick it up the next day.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in the pool. I'll come back. If I'm feeling like going back upstairs, we're gonna do it.
But I'll tell you this, because I've done a lot of digital recording where like my sessions aren't locked per se, because so much of what I've done commercially and shit is it's all in the box. Everything's in the box. Don't overthink it too much, man.
Sure.
Like, because there was the shoot thing that I released. Like, I was just recutting guitars over and over and over again, and then I ended up just going with the first pass I did on a lot of shit. So, if that's your first time doing that, that's the only advice I have for the DI world.
Don't fall into the sandpit.
Yeah.
All right, man. So, well, we kind of like caught Internal Bleeding fans up to date. We told a little bit of your history, but there's one part we left out. Don't worry, it's not going to get weird. You also work. You work the door. I don't know what kind of term we want to throw around: doorman, bouncer. But you do work the door at Amityville Music Hall and other establishments.
Sure.
How long you been doing that type of work?
So I've been like a nightclub bouncer for like 10 years. You know.
Okay.
That was through a old, city hardcore guy Connect. And I ended up being the door guy at the Emporium, which is now the fucking the Stereo Garden in Patchogue. But I was the door guy at the Emporium for a very long time. And you work your way up. I was the guy at the back door, and then I was the guy standing next to the bathrooms. And then once people realize that I'm a little more connected and I'm a little more professional than a lot of the other guys, they put me at the ticket booth. Then I'm the door. That's how it goes. And I work my way up. There's a little politics to it, of course.
Sure.
But I also have a restaurant and hospitality background too. So like they also like, oh, this guy's not an idiot. Put him up front. You know what I mean? Like he can talk to people. Put him up front. You know what I mean?
No one had to talk to people.
You know what I mean?
It's a big, yeah.
I've been like the host at a nice steakhouse. You know what I mean? Like so, like I know how to fucking talk to a motherfucker. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
Shout out Cooper Smith Steakhouse in East Islip back in the day.
Now, there's a lot to get into with all that.
AMH. I am for 2 or 3 years now, and I'd rather be with my people. I've worked at strip clubs, I've worked at fucking restaurants, I've worked at fucking dance clubs, I've worked at regular ass fucking meathead chicken wing bars. This is perfect for me. I get to fucking experience music, for better or for worse. Sometimes it's not, bands you love or local bands that are absolutely punishing you, but, sometimes you get to be on stage with All Out War and get paid $150 for it. You know what I mean? Like, so it balances itself out. You know what I mean?
Sure.
All right. I got to ask. Let's start, because there's like a flurry of questions in my mind, and I got to do it for the listeners. We don't always have someone who's been a bouncer for a variety of different establishments in here. Let's start with the strip clubs now, and also this is like East Long Island, so like I love Long Island. I'm a Long Islander at heart, and I've lived in Long Island all my life, so I know how Long Island gets.
Sure.
Not to say there aren't classy gentlemen's clubs type establishments out here, but working at a strip club, Long Island, I mean, I imagine you got a few stories. It probably got a little out of hand a few times. What are some of the things you see that people might not even expect,
So I got to be honest with you, man. So I worked at this place called Gossip on 110, right?
Oh,
which is a pretty upscale place.
Fair enough.
So you got to have loot to come in there. You got to be dressed a certain way to come in there. And like for the most part, old white dudes ain't coming to fight you with a boner, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so like we only had one fight there. It was like some Russian mob dudes. They threw like a fucking potted plant through the window, and we had to regulate, and it was the whole thing. But that was really the only fight. I've seen way worse at AMH, you know what I mean?
And without remorse shows.
My own stupid shows. Weirdly tame, dude, compared to like even some of the restaurants and bars that I've like fucking, bars in Long Beach and shit are a million times worse than that strip club. I've never worked in any smaller establishment, so like it's probably worse at a cheaper place. You know what I mean, where there's no dress code and stuff. But I worked at a place where you had to come in with a certain level of decorum and act a certain way, or else it wasn't going to go well. So really, no bullshit. Honestly, it was like pretty easy gig.
So the wing joint in Long Beach. What happened
Minnesota's, there? Yeah. Some dude fucking. Some dude walking out past me with a beer. Like my only job is to ask people not to bring beer onto the street. You know what I mean? If they're going to smoke. I was like, you could leave the beer on that little table right there. And the guy just didn't want to hear it. So he fucking MMA hip tossed my fucking ass onto the fucking ice.
Ooh, really?
Like, it happened so fucking fast. And I'm a big dude, and like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, holy fuck. It happened so fucking fast. And thankfully, I had a couple other fucking dudes that were already on top of it. They fucking scoop him up and drag him around the building. And I'm like, oh, Lord. I'm like, wow, that was That was so unexpected and terrible. Like, my leg is killing me.
Oh.
So we dragged him around the building. I may or may not have broken his leg.
Oof.
But fucking,
Allegedly.
yeah.
He's a real jerk.
That's the worst shit. You know, like,
yeah,
sometimes, like, what? I got trampled at the Emporium one time. Young M.A., you know the rapper, Young M.A.?
Yeah. I'm aware of the
Hardcore.
rapper Young M.A., yes.
Yeah. Hardcore rapper, female chick.
Okay.
Sick. Her one big song's great.
Right. That was the chorus.
I actually don't even know this.
Okay, yeah. Well,
but I'm doing the door, and people are just not happy that like we're not open yet. I'm like, I don't know what to fucking tell you. Like, the doors aren't open yet, guys. Like, when the doors are open and the ticket booth is ready and sound check is over, like, I'll open the doors. Do you guys want to stand there while people are fucking mopping and sweeping? Like, that's why it's closed right now. And they just 50 women just decided to go, no, we're coming in now. And they pushed me over on the sidewalk. And, like, I fell over. I tripped over my own fucking foot. And they were, like, walking on my body with, like, with heels and shoes and, like, walking on me.
Jesus
and, like, my
Christ,
head. And I'm
dude.
like, holy. It was like, Thanksgiving. It was like fucking Black Friday.
Wow.
Like, opening the doors at Target.
Wow.
And, like, I was the guy standing there. It was it was unbelievable. So that was the worst thing that I've had. And I've seen crazy fights. I've seen, venue clearing fights and shit like that,
dude.
I've seen overdoses and all that shit. And,
I encourage the listeners to look into Young M.A.'s discography. She's got some interesting songs. Moving right along.
You got to see her live, too.
Yeah.
Is that Young Massachusetts? That's what this stands for?
Just please don't step on my head.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, be nice to the bounce. That's something I say a lot when we go on tour, when we're playing shows, man. Respect to the bouncers and the door staff.
Yeah. All the crew. Be nice.
Is it generally more respectful working in a rock club that caters to underground music like AMH?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, especially because this is really, it's really revolves around our scene. Once in a while, we get the normie crowd. We'll do the fucking dance club night. Once in a while, we'll do the fucking local band night where there's a fucking jerk off. Some guy last night was giving us a hard time about not opening the gate between the bands. I was like, shut the fuck. I'll open the gate when I tell you I'm gonna open the fucking gate. Relax. Like,
yeah.
Fucking relax. Like, once in a while, that kind of stuff comes up, but like, it's mostly
normal.
Mostly our people and the orbit of people around that. And yeah, man. I mean, we have very few rules. I don't want fucking people drinking underage there. Like, that's not cool or funny to me. Or like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm fucking responsible and it's fucking stupid. You know what I mean? Go do it in the car. I don't give a shit. You can't do it inside. You can smoke weed. I don't give a fuck. Not in the building. Do it out back. You know what I mean? But like, just want it to go fucking smooth.
Yeah, man. I hear you, man. Wow. So,
but AMH is cool, man. We have a fucking great time with that. And the great show is great there. Obituary there was unfucking believable. When Pain of Truth plays there, it's unbelievable. IB and Suffo there was fucking unbelievable. Mortician was fucking sick as fuck.
A lot of great shows there. Yeah, there's always great shows.
You guys killed it. That was the best I think I ever saw you guys.
Thanks for the compliment, man.
Great.
Yeah,
I've seen you guys 100 times. That might have been the best ever.
We just recorded the album. We just wrapped up all the tracking over the weekend, man, for the new album.
It's fucking
man.
awesome.
We're excited for that. Yeah, dude. We're playing a show this July. We're playing a show. The show is announced, but I haven't seen us announced on it, so I don't want to spill any beans. But yeah, we're going to be playing a show in July the 20th in New York City. But yeah, man, a lot of great shit comes through Amityville Music Hall, and you've even worked for manager Dan Valentino's other establishments here in Huntington, right?
Right, yeah. So like when I took a couple years off from bouncing and doing door stuff, just because I just didn't want to fucking do it. I was getting burnt out and fucking diet was terrible. I remember one time when I was working in the Hamptons, I was like, I think I ate at 7-Eleven every day this month. You know what I mean? Like in my car, in the parking lot, that dry ass, terrible turkey sandwich. I was like, it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was just like, it's the only thing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, before I drive an hour back to Selden, you know what I mean? Like,
it's some rough hours.
But I was like, I can't fucking do this no more. So I took a few years off. And, then Dan hits me up. He's like, hey, man, do you still have your license? I was like, sort of. He's like, well, if I can get it renewed. He's like, do you want to? He's like, can you just do the door at Vauxhall? It's going to be fucking busy. I need people. This is mascara. He's like, I kind of need a dude to help me enforce that shit and make sure the waitresses aren't getting yelled at and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, that's no problem, man. And he paid me good and stuff. And then it kind of just clicked one day. He was just like, wait, you should just be